Buenos dias, and welcome back to the Castillo de San Luis. My name is Diego, and as some of you may know, I'm one of the soldiers who is stationed here at the Castillo. And recently, as of yesterday, the captain came to us and ordered us to go on a lengthy, probably a week-long patrol of Appalachia Province. Now, that's going to take some preparation. We have to lay in our supplies, and one of the most important supplies that we have to get ready is food. Now, I've already packed my knapsack and things in my haversack with other necessities like spare clothing and a fire starting kit and a mess kit. But now I have to get my food ready. Now, the food that I need has to stay good for a long period of time. It can't go bad when we're out on the trail, right? So the food that we're going to be making today is going to have to be preserved. It's very important. What we're going to be doing today, we're going to be making hard bread, known as sea biscuit by sailors, and beef jerky. Let's get started. Now, if we're talking about beef jerky, the really good thing about Appalachia Province is there is a lot of beef cattle here in Appalachia. The captain himself has a rancho or a hacienda, which is basically a cattle ranch. And he often provides beef for the garrison. And you can see an example of this cow skull, which has been previously processed. Now, in order to make beef or meat stay good for a long period of time, we have to preserve it through a process called smoking or drying. In order to do that, we use this. This is what was called a barbacoa. Barbacoa is a Taino word. The Taino people are natives of an island in the Caribbean. Barbacoas can be used to roast or broil meat for eating right away or for curing it for later use. And it basically consists of what you see here, 4 posts and a grill. Now, the one thing that's missing at the moment is the actual fire. That will come when we're ready to actually smoke the meat. But smoking basically drives moisture out of the meat and toughens it so the meat doesn't go bad. First of all, what we have to do is once we get the fire going, we have to let it go down to a certain extent, let it burn down to basically hot coals, but we also want good amount of smoke coming up through this grill. Without the smoke, you're not going to really be smoking or drying out the meat. So first thing we have to do if we want to make jerky, we have to cut the beef into strips. And place the strips on the grill. And then once the fire is where we want it to be, we just pick up the grill, set it on top of the fire. Now, to preserve meat this way, it takes a long time. And basically what I'll have to do is I'll have to stay by this and tend to it constantly by flipping the meat over and making sure it's nice and evenly smoked throughout. Now, while I'm waiting for the barbacoa to do its thing to cure the meat that I'm going to be placing on it later, I want to go ahead and start making the hard bread, which of course sailors have called sea biscuit or hardtack. So come into the blockhouse with me and see how we do that. Welcome back to the blockhouse. We are in the mess hall, and hopefully we won't make too much of a mess. What we're going to be working on, though, is hardtack or sea biscuit, but what Spaniards call galletas. Galletas are basically consist of 3 ingredients. You have salt, you have water, and we have flour, and that's pretty much it. Now, first we need to take 4 or 5 cups of the flour and place it in a bowl. It can be a wood bowl or in this case a ceramic bowl. And we add about 3 pinches of salt into the flour. Then we add about maybe 2 cups of water to the mixture. And we mix it all together like so. And at the end, we want to have a somewhat dry dough. Now we're going to take this dough, I'm going to roll it out on a cutting board, which I have already set up, like this. I'll move my flour out of the way. So we're going to roll this out, kind of knead it as we go a little bit. Kind of spread it out so where it's about maybe a ½ inch thick. And we're going to end up making this into a rectangle. We can spread it out. All right, very well. Now what I've done here, I've taken my dough, I've placed it on the cutting board, and I've flattened it, rolled it out a little bit, and I've kind of squared it up. Now I'm going to take a knife, or you can use a fork, and you're going to make indentations in the dough. You don't want to go all the way through, you just want to go on the surface, like so. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually cut the dough. So you have something about like that. Once the dough is ready, then it can be baked. You want to do that for about 2 or 3 hours. Now, you have to check it constantly and turn it every now and then to make sure it's cooked thoroughly and that it doesn't burn. All right, after the galletas are baked, you can take it out of whatever you're cooking it in and let it sit out and harden. Let it dry out and harden. Now, since I'm leaving on my march, on my patrol first thing in the morning, I really don't have time for that, so it's basically going to cure as I go. Here is a sample of the finished product. And you can, and that's why they call it hardtack. It's very tough. Hardtack, once it's sealed away in like a wooden barrel, will keep very well for weeks and even months at a time without any other preservation efforts being required. But if you're going to seal it up in a barrel, you got to make sure that it stays dry. Now, for my purposes as a soldado going out on the march, I will throw several pieces of this into a small bag that goes into my haversack, which is used to carry food. Now, we'll have the beef jerky on hand, we'll have the hardtack in our haversacks, but that's probably not all the food that we'll encounter along the way. We may do some hunting, we may do some fishing. But if either of those efforts are unsuccessful, then we'll have to resort to the fabulous feast of a hardtack and beef jerky. Well, I really need to finish up my preparations. So, adios, comrades. Wish me luck on my patrol.